Welcome to our channel. Today we embark on a journey through some of the most harrowing chapters in human history. Join me now as we delve into these darker recesses of our past, exploring 10 of the deadliest times in history. Our journey begins in the year 165 AD, at the height of the Roman Empire. The empire was vast, stretching across 3 continents, a testament to its power and influence. The Antonine Plague, likely smallpox, infiltrated Rome, brought back by returning legions. These soldiers, who had fought bravely on distant frontiers, unknowingly carried a deadly pathogen. Imagine the terror as a relentless fever swept through communities. Families were torn apart, and the once bustling streets grew eerily silent. Victims endured agonizing skin eruptions before succumbing to the disease. The sight of these painful sores was a grim reminder of the plague's reach. Thousands perished each day, leaving the city's streets littered with the dead. The scale of death was unimaginable, with entire neighborhoods decimated. The plague raged for nearly 15 years, severely weakening the Roman Empire. The once mighty empire struggled to maintain its territories, and the social fabric began to unravel. We move now to 8th century China, to the Tang dynasty. In 755 AD, General An Lushan ignited a rebellion that shook the dynasty to its core. Imagine the chaos as An Lushan's forces swept across the land, leaving devastation in their wake. The fighting raged for 8 years, leaving millions dead from battle, famine, and disease. The rebellion marked a turning point, weakening the Tang dynasty and leading to fragmentation. In 1850, Hong Xiuquan ignited the Taiping Rebellion in China. Convinced he was the brother of Jesus Christ, Hong sought to establish the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. Imagine a vast peasant army clashing with Qing forces in brutal confrontations. Entire cities were decimated, populations massacred. For 14 years, China was engulfed in violence, claiming 20 to 30 million lives. The Taiping Rebellion left an indelible scar on the Chinese nation. In 1816, the world experienced the year without a summer. The eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia shrouded the planet in volcanic haze. Imagine a world plunged into twilight, the sun a distant pale orb. Global temperatures plummeted, leading to widespread crop failures and famine. Frosts in June killed crops, causing despair among farmers. Food riots erupted and widespread famine stalked the land. As World War I ended, the Spanish flu pandemic emerged in 1918. This deadly virus, also known as the H1N1 influenza virus, spread rapidly across the globe, affecting millions of people in a matter of months. This deadly virus disproportionately affected young, healthy adults. Unlike typical influenza strains that primarily target the very young and the elderly, the Spanish flu struck down those in the prime of their lives, leaving communities devastated. Imagine a world already grappling with war now facing an invisible enemy. Soldiers returning from the front lines brought the virus with them, unknowingly spreading it to their families and communities. The combination of war and pandemic created a perfect storm of suffering and chaos. Hospitals overflowed and the virus spread like wildfire. Medical facilities were quickly overwhelmed, and makeshift hospitals were set up in schools, churches, and other public buildings to accommodate the growing number of patients. Entire families were wiped out, homes turned into places of mourning. The sheer scale of the loss was unimaginable, with entire communities grieving the deaths of loved ones. By 1920, the Spanish flu had infected 500 million people, claiming 50 to 100 million lives. The virus spread to even the most remote corners of the world, leaving no region untouched by its deadly reach. The pandemic left an enduring legacy of fear and loss. The world was forever changed by the Spanish flu, and its impact is still felt today as a stark reminder of the fragility of human life in the face of such a devastating disease. The year is 1346, and the Black Death sweeps across Europe. This bubonic plague left a trail of unimaginable suffering and death. Imagine a world where the air and water could carry a swift, agonizing death. The Black Death infiltrated even isolated communities, victims succumbing within days. Cities became ghost towns, streets littered with bodies. By the late 1350s, the Black Death had killed 75 to 200 million people. In 20th century China, the Great Chinese Famine claimed tens of millions of lives. This devastating period is etched into the collective memory of the nation, a grim reminder of the fragility of human existence when faced with man-made disasters. From 1959 to 1961, Mao Zedong's policies led to a catastrophic famine. The Great Leap Forward, intended to rapidly transform China into a socialist society, instead plunged the country into chaos and despair. Imagine a nation once abundant in agriculture transformed into a landscape of hunger. Fertile fields that once promised bountiful harvests turned barren, unable to sustain the population. Farmers, who had once been the backbone of the nation, found themselves struggling to survive. The Great Leap Forward backfired, leading to a decline in agricultural output. Ambitious projects, poorly planned and executed, failed spectacularly. Grain storage facilities stood empty, a stark contrast to the propaganda that promised prosperity. Millions starved, families torn apart, and reports of cannibalism emerged. The social fabric of the nation was ripped apart as people did whatever they could to survive. The desperation was palpable, and the human cost was immeasurable. The famine claimed 30 to 45 million lives, a tragic testament to political ideology taken to extremes. Memorials now stand in remembrance of those who perished, a somber reminder of the consequences of misguided policies. The Great Chinese Famine remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, a man-made catastrophe that should never be forgotten. From 1975 to 1979, Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge regime experienced unimaginable brutality. Pol Pot's regime transformed Cambodia into a vast prison camp. Imagine a society turned upside down, families torn apart, and education abolished. The killing fields became the final resting place for 1.5 to 2 million Cambodians. The Cambodian genocide left an indelible scar on the nation. In the 1930s, Soviet Ukraine experienced the Holodomor, a man-made famine. Stalin's regime confiscated grain, leaving Ukrainians to starve. Villages became ghost towns, inhabitants resorting to desperate measures to survive. The Holodomor claimed millions of lives, a calculated act of genocide. It stands as a chilling reminder of the human cost of unchecked power. In 1986, the Chernobyl disaster unfolded in Ukraine. A reactor explosion released radioactive material into the atmosphere. Firefighters rushed to contain the blaze, unaware of the danger. The nearby city of Pripyat was evacuated, becoming a ghost town. The Chernobyl disaster continues to cast a long shadow over the region. As we conclude our journey, remember these events serve as reminders of human resilience. Let these stories inspire us to strive for a better future, where such tragedies are consigned to history.